And so I guess the question would be, how would you define the expectations of tribal council in that ethics ordinance vis-a-vis a majority rule? So we have 9 on purpose so that 5, it's an odd number so that there is a majority. How should the minority behave? Denise.
Yeah, and that's a difficult question to answer because everybody's perception and how they react and actually follow that is different. People say one thing, respond in a different way. I will give you one example of a situation. I did not support the dog track. Toby knows this. Toby and I have conversations about that. But that's what the council decided to purchase and move forward on. And I tell you what, I have been there for the demolition. I have really been hopeful. I've been engaged in all the conversations of what we're going to do there. And I do hope with all my heart that that's a successful project. But it was not a project that I agreed to, but I have backed it because that's what the majority of our council has decided to do. So there is when I think you can make a decision and you can tell the people how you voted and why you voted on something. But once a decision is made, then you have to move into that role and you got to learn that on council. They're not always going to decide the way you want things to go. But you have a responsibility as a council person and you move forward and you hope for the best of the decisions that some of your other council members have made and you move forward on it. But that's not, people will say that's how they operate, but that's not always how it works out. So good luck to anyone that can truly figure that out.
Anybody?
Sure. Briefly, I think it's interesting that we've created a climate in this tribe where it's not okay to agree to disagree. I mean, it just seems like it's a fundamental idea about having dialogue and being good neighbors and being a member of a community and in fact being a member of a tribe, that it's okay to agree to disagree. I've had conversations with council members, currently sitting council members, where we absolutely do not agree and we will never agree, and it's okay. I don't dislike them. I would work with them happily because we're allowed to do that. We're allowed to agree to disagree. Now, should somebody be muzzled or silenced or fear retribution from someone else on council if they don't agree? No, I don't think that's okay and I don't think that's right. If I disagree with something, I should be allowed to say why. No different than I should be able to publicly say here, and I will publicly say here, I supported the amendments to re-enroll our tribal members. And I supported the amendment to allow us to have more of a voice as tribal members over the initiative and referendum process. Before we waste $30 million with something like microgreen, we should seek tribal member input. Before we buy a dog track, we should seek tribal member input and tell the tribe it's going to cost $20 million just for us to make this bare ground. Should we invest that much money in something that's just a bare plot of earth, ready for development now? $20 million later, it will be ready for development. How the hell are we going to get our money back? Let's ask the tribal members if they want to sink that much money into something like that first. And it's the same thing with, if we're going to make public policy decisions that affects all Oregonians, like the native mascot thing, and everybody knows how I feel about that, that's something we should be asking tribal membership about. I mean, it shouldn't just be up to 9 people to either sink us or swim us. Tribal members need to have more input on these things. Especially when you're talking about millions of dollars. I'm just going to throw it out. You know, microgreen and the dog track alone involves $50 million of our tribe's money. How much of that could have been invested or loaned to other tribes to build casinos elsewhere in the country that don't affect us, that we could have raked in profits off of for advising them and consulting them, and we're helping other natives in native country. I mean, I think you should be allowed to speak your voice. You should be allowed to say, I don't agree, I dissented. It's no different than the Supreme Court. When a major decision comes down, the majority writes an opinion saying why they voted for it, and the dissenting people write a dissension saying this is why we didn't. That's called transparency, and that has never happened. We publish the votes, but we don't have a transparent process where people can say, hey, here's why I didn't agree with this. And if you believe in me as a leader, then people who identify with somebody who agrees or dissents are going to say, okay, I don't feel so alone right now. I don't feel that I'm the only person who feels this way, because here's one of our leaders saying exactly what I feel.
I agree with what Monty said about just the toxic part of it, and I think that is how I think council members need to be able to speak what they believe. But what they can do is when other people start attacking council members on the other side of that equation and saying that they're trying to hurt the tribe or that they don't have the best interests in the tribe at heart, that kind of conversation needs to be put down by the leaders. Because I believe every council member has the best in mind of the tribe. They have different ways of getting there. But we don't need to attack them for that. We need to be respectful to them, and I think that's how tribal council can participate in kind of tamping that down, is just let people know that that's not going to be tolerated, it's not true, and then step up to the plate doing that. Now, we talked about ethics. We don't really have a good ethics as far as I know on tribal council. Not that they don't have ethics, we don't have an ordinance around ethics, a good ethics ordinance. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, since it came up. Maybe one of the ways we develop that as a committee format or a board format, I don't know, but perhaps bringing in former council members to form that committee on ethics, people that have been in the position, know the trouble that comes with it, know the difficulties. Maybe they could form that committee to keep an ethics ordinance alive within tribal council. And I guess that's kind of how I would handle that. Thanks.
So I agree, we need to take out our ethics ordinance, we need to look at it, we need to make it real, and we need to do our best to enforce it. The other thing, so there is a tension, right? We have a body of 9, an odd number, there's a vote, a majority wins. That happened in the initiative, that happens when tribal council makes decisions. And so it is the obligation of the minority to support the majority's decision in terms of our public persona and how we're going to move forward. That being said, tribal council members have to also be able to communicate to the membership how they feel and what they think. And that's part of being responsive to the membership. If membership doesn't like how tribal council's been voting and the decisions they've been making, that's how they'll decide who they're going to vote for next. So there's a tension between these two things. Tribal council has to be responsive to the membership, and we have to move forward when the final vote happens. There's a critical piece here. The rules have to be the same for everyone, right? We can't say, you folks over there who perhaps don't disagree with me, you need to be muzzled. Well, I am going to go and say whatever I care to. And I think that's really part of what Michael was raising in terms of, it's okay to disagree. We need to stop reacting when somebody disagrees with us like they're harming the tribe. They're not. They get to have a different opinion, and they have it for probably really valid reasons for them. So we need to look at that officially in our ordinance. I think our tribal council should strive for the highest ethical behavior and transparency, and we should be accountable to the membership for that. Our council should be accountable to the membership for that, and the rules have to be the same for everyone.
Thanks, Kathleen. Jackie?
I agree with Kathleen with what she's saying. It's okay to agree to disagree. I supported the amendment for our tribal members because I wanted to see try to go on a few more generations, and I'm for helping people, and it's just a shame that, you know, people, they act, it's human nature to react with the negative. And if we can get that across, you know, with our council people to, you know, have your opinions, but let's not be backbiting or nasty about it, because we don't all think the same. That's why we have 9 people up here. And if we were just going to be with the one thought, we only need one person. But that's kind of Big Brother. So I think with the ethics, we have to have high standards for our tribal people and hold them to it. You know, if somebody's, I don't know, down in a public place, intoxicated, and it doesn't look good for all of us. It's not just that one person, it's for all of us for putting up with something like that. So I think when you take this position, you need to take it seriously. Understand that the people voted, tribal members voted you into this position, and to do the best job that you're capable of. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Brian, and I also would just like to thank the PAC and the leaders of the PAC for the opportunity to come and hear from our candidates today. This creates a great opportunity for members to come ask questions and get better insight. So thank you for anybody involved in organizing this event. So I think Tracie's comments are a great segue into kind of what I wanted to comment or ask question about. And, I think she's absolutely right, and I agree with her 100%. The enrollment issue isn't going anywhere just because of the most recent constitutional amendment election yesterday. I don't think now it's just going to go away. I think that should you get elected, you're going to be faced with enrollment issues for your entire term, just like I was for 2 terms, and just like the people before me on tribal council were since 83, roughly, or certainly since 95. So I guess my question is, and I want to make a comment, about a year ago, roughly, I proposed an initiative that hadn't been proposed prior to that, and that is to put a single item amendment and have an election based on that single item amendment. It got support, and then it got overturned, and then things were added, and then it was bundled, and then there was a second thing. So my question is, and I really felt strongly about that, and here's why. I felt like previous to that, we have exhausted other options, most other options. We had bundled them, we had put everything into one, we had not bundled them, we had put many things into on the ballot for people to vote on. We hadn't seen success. The enrollment is very dear to a lot of people's hearts, and what we hadn't seen yet is putting a one item on a ballot and seeing how that turned out. So my question to you is, if elected, having exhausted all of the other avenues in terms of conducting a constitutional amendment election, would you be willing to support putting out to the membership a single item, and you can address them as many as you want. If you want to talk about the 5 years relinquishment, you want to put that out to the membership. If you want to define Grand Round Blood, and you want to put that out to the membership, or you want to address the 2-part amendment with regard to the parent on the roll, would you be willing to address those one at a time and let them be voted upon on their own merits, a single item on the election ballot? So I guess that's my question. That's what was proposed a year ago. That got overturned, and so I'm still deeply concerned about that. I still want to be involved as much as I can from the sidelines, not being on tribal council anymore. So it's important to me and the people that I support for tribal council to know whether or not they would support doing a single item amendment to the Constitution. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, I definitely would like to see that happen, but maybe one thing we could do is prioritize the item that you put on there. Is it going to be about relinquishment? How important is that, and comparing to the 5 years, or, you know, put them down like that. What would be the most important, and a strategy to look at that as a whole, a big picture. And I think people would understand that one thing at a time. And from what I was hearing, they weren't understanding with the bundling. They just didn't like that. I've heard a lot of comments on that. And putting them out one by one would be the way to do it. But it is expensive, you know, and but our people are important. This disenrollment was a tragedy for many, many people and their children, grandchildren. And I think that that would be one way of resolving the enrollment problem. But it's going to have to take calculating down to being real critical about your enrollment, doing the history. And I know the enrollment clerk can't do it, but if you're passionate and you want to be part of this tribe, you will trace your blood and not just say, well, accept this, because you have to have a CIB. And that's like I said, a number that only Indians, horses, and sorry, dogs get. They're registered. You have to have a pedigree. So I think that putting them one by one would be excellent, because a lot of people don't take time to read those articles, you know, in their full consistency. But if you put one by one, people would say, oh, yeah, and it's just like voting for Hillary or Trump, one by one. That's how you know you would do it, and the membership would understand it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Let's go to Michael, and then we'll go to Monty.
Well, the short answer is yes. I would support doing them individually. But I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. We need to start gathering the data about, you know, where we're at in our bloodlines. If we have all the descendant information, then that is our data that we need for as far as impacts. The sad thing is we could have done this individually and just did even just one item. Of the 3 items, or I think there was 3 this time, one item, and it maybe it passed already by now. That was always what I heard. The people that were not going to vote yes was there's just this uncertainty. They weren't comfortable with that. So gathering the data, presenting that to the membership, doing them one at a time, you should be able to see how strong people feel about those just by the numbers in each individual thing that we're voting on. And we could break this up and put them all out there next year again. I'm not sure, you know, that's going to be much fun to go through that one more time. But then definitively, I think this time, just by the numbers, it's apparent that putting them all together didn't work. So like I said, the short answer is yes, I would do that.
Okay, Monty?
Yeah, I'm gonna second that. Man, there was an awful lot of kickback about bundling online and social media and stuff. So it seems to me, you know, when we voted on all those things, gosh, is it 10 years ago now or something? It was, you know, we voted on that. You had to relinquish your membership. Each one was a separate item. It was like a menu list of items that we voted on. And I'd be all in favor of doing that again, like actually breaking the issues out into each separate item. But here's my thing is this. You know, just like in a presidential election or something, people wait until they've decided that they're not going to run again to become a maverick or get really brave and come right out and say what they really feel. And what I'm asking the membership to do is have faith in me. If you give me your vote, I'm actually going to fight for you tooth and nail from day one. I would love for us to start using the tools at our disposal. If council can improve infant enrollments, they can also vote to re-enroll every single person they disenrolled. Okay? They can reverse that. They can say, we're going to re-enroll all of these roll numbers. These are all people who were previously enrolled. We disenrolled them, but now we're going to re-enroll them. We're making an executive decision. Just do it. Okay? And the second thing about that is this, people talk about certificates of Indian blood and stuff, and I'm sick to death of hearing about the BIA. They started certificates of Indian blood in the 1700s as a racist way to exterminate us, that hopefully our blood would become thin enough that we wouldn't exist anymore. And now we're doing their job for them. We don't need to do their job for them. All right? We need to start actually being forward thinking about this on our own. And we are the ones who will decide who's Indian and who's not the federal government. We'll decide who our tribal members are. We don't need the BIA to tell us that information, right? That should be for us to decide. So, because we are a sovereign nation, and this is what I'm saying. No, I say this all the time, and if you meet me, come up to me, talk to me, because I'll be happy to say it and have a conversation with anybody about the fact that, exercising sovereign nation status to keep native mascots alive, but we don't exercise it in matters like this, where we determine who is part of our tribe and who isn't. Why are we exercising our sovereignty then, when it really matters, when it really counts, when it involves the health and the happiness of all of our tribal members? That's when we should be exercising sovereignty and doing it teeth snapping and snarling. This is our tribe. We'll decide what's right for us.
So real quick, Catherine, before you go on, so I want to just clarify and get you to answer the question real quick, Monty, because Toby's slightly nuanced question is not that because we've done it bundled a couple times and we've actually had them as individual items as well before, and you're right, and almost all of them failed as individual items. Toby's question is more about having just one single item, although the one that I think you proposed was a two-part item. And again, this gets into what's bundling, what's parts, and what's all that. But that's not the question. The question is breaking out each of the items into a single election, I think is the gist that Toby's asking. Would you be supportive of that?
Yeah, so breaking out everything as a line item.
Not
in
as
one
a line.
election. No, bundling it all?
No.
Well, which is it?
It's not either of those. It's taking one of the line items and having an election just on that.
And having just, okay, that would be incredibly costly. I'm going to say no. That would be incredibly costly if we're using the BIA, and trust me, they charge us. They charge us for that. For us to sit there and have an election on just one item, what are we're going to take the next 2 years to work through all this stuff at a huge cost to the tribe? No. Just council, do your job, re-enroll people, heal the tribe, do what we elected you to do, and move on from there.
So trying to respond to your question, which is one initiative on one election. Perhaps, if that's what people want. We heard, and I think we all heard loud and clear, people with very strong, we're frustrated by the bundling, we wish this package wasn't bundled, we wish it was line itemed. And, okay, so we need to hear that. There are folks, though, who will not be helped by only addressing parent on the roll. And so that's my concern. I think we should address parent on the roll, and I think people have told us they want the option to vote on those things separately. And I guess I just want to be sure that as we address that, as we hear that and respond, we don't forget the people who would be left out if we only move forward with that one issue. I think the other thing that I hope happens very differently the next time we take this on is that we provide more information about the current status of our enrollment. I asked twice in public session, would you please release the information about where our tribe's blood quantum stands today? What percentage of our tribal members are at 116? What percentage of our tribal members are at 1/8? Because I'm out there talking to a lot of families, and most of the families I talk to tell me we're getting down to the end of our bloodline. Our grandkids are the last ones, or their kids will be the last ones. It is actually really relevant and important, if that's the case, for us to understand that as we think about what decisions we need to make. Some folks are they're worried about the floodgates. We're going to let too many tribal members in. If within a generation, we're going to be losing a substantial number of our tribal members just to blood quantum, that's really worth knowing. So I think we need to hear that folks want the opportunity to vote on things separately. And we need to remember that there are folks who won't be helped by parent on the roll. And we need to hear that from them too, and their desire for relief and to solve their problems. And please let us provide the membership with good information about where we stand so we can make an informed decision.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment because Toby mentioned the fact that he had proposed this round, and I will say, sitting in one of these PAC meetings, I think in Bend, Oregon, in 2007 or 2008, that is what I stood for, was putting each amendment out every year on a timeline and resolving all these issues one at a time. I couldn't get anybody within the tribe, on the tribal council to support that position at that time. I will say, being on council today, I realize that it's a lot more, the enrollment issues are a lot more political and about families and people than they are just about being an Indian person and enrolling Indian people in our families and taking care of our families. It's not really about that. And that saddens me. That saddens me, because as Indian people, I think we should act as Indian people and take care of our families like we have for histories, and not be subjected to the government structures that have destroyed our tribes and divided us. And we're doing exactly what the government set out for us to do long, long ago, and we're following in those footsteps. So I will say, I think what Kathleen talked about having that statistical information, that is information that several of us on council did ask for. Kathleen got up and asked for it in a public meeting. We put an ATP out to get the information, and it wouldn't pass. So for whatever reason, I would think almost everybody would want that, unless they want to just put out the misinformation of the floodgates and the thousands of people. So they didn't want to give us, I don't know why they wouldn't want us to have that statistical information. I don't know why they wouldn't want the people to have that statistical information, but for whatever reason, they didn't. And I don't know, and how these enrollment amendments, I don't think will ever pass as a single amendment, as a bundled amendment, or any other kind of, unless you have a united council that supports the position of those amendments. And that, I think, is a track record shown that all of our constitutional amendments have, whether people call them failed, pass, they won, we lost, whatever, people have all kinds of different ways of saying that. It's not going, they've never passed. I think they say the 1999 passed because there was a united council. I think the 5-year relinquishment passed because there was a united council on that issue. So we've presented it many different ways. I felt that the 84 to 99, which was not nearly as liberal as the old Grand Ronde blood definition, it only recognized our families in our tribe. It only recognized the blood that was recorded in our tribe. It was not adding anything new. But the message was that it was adding all this new families, new blood, thousands of people. So, but if we would have had the data, like we know who our descendants are, we know where people's blood comes, and we could have easily have dissolved that information and given accurate information. So, I don't know, but you'll find, any of you get elected on council, that that's the enrollment issue is much more political issue than it is about us as Indian people. And I hope that someday we can resolve that. And until that does happen, it will not. I don't think we'll ever be able to pass it.